You woke up this morning and you already knew, before you even got out of bed. That heavy feeling in your stomach, that pressure that's just there. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're already calculating your day around it. You've been here before. A lot of mornings, actually. And here's the thing. You've done everything right. You drink your water. You eat your fiber. You've probably tried every powder, every pill, every suggestion your doctor gave you in that 7-minute appointment where you barely had time to explain what was actually going on. And yet, here you are. Still dealing with it. I want you to know something before we go any further. This is not your body failing you. This is not just aging. And it is absolutely not in your head. What's happening inside your gut right now has a very specific explanation. And once you understand it, everything you've tried before will suddenly make sense. Not because it worked, because you'll finally understand why it couldn't. There are 4 oils, things that are probably sitting in your kitchen right now, that address what fiber and water are physically not capable of addressing. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly what they are, exactly how to use them, and exactly what to expect and when. The last one is the one that changes everything. So stay with me. But first, let's talk about what's actually going on. When you were younger, your intestinal wall produced a steady, thick layer of protective mucus. That mucus is what kept everything moving the way it was supposed to. Think of it like the coating on a good pan. When the coating is intact, nothing sticks. Everything slides. When it wears down, and after 60, it does wear down in almost everyone, things start to drag. They stick. They sit longer than they should. And here's why fiber doesn't fix that. Fiber adds bulk. It gives your colon more material to push through. But if the walls themselves have lost their coating, adding more material doesn't help. It actually makes things harder. You're not pushing through a smooth surface anymore. You're pushing through something rough and dry. More fiber, more friction. That's why a lot of people over 60 find that more fiber makes things worse, not better. It's not a fiber problem. It never was. Water helps, but only so much. You can pour water through a dry, rough pipe all day. If there's nothing coating the walls, nothing moves the way it should. And laxatives. Let's be honest about laxatives. They force your colon to contract, whether it's ready or not. They don't restore anything. They don't rebuild anything. They just push harder. And over time, your colon starts to depend on that artificial push. It forgets how to do the job on its own. Doctors have a name for it. Laxative dependency. It is shockingly common in people over 60. And once it develops, you're not managing constipation anymore. You're managing laxative dependency on top of constipation. None of this is your fault. You were given the standard advice. Fiber, water, softeners. That advice was designed for a different problem. Not yours. But here's the part that genuinely makes me angry. And I think when you hear this, it's going to make you angry too. 50 years ago, people consumed unprocessed oils every single day. Olive oil, flaxseed oil, oils that had been part of the human diet for thousands of years. Oils that carried the specific fatty acids your intestinal wall depends on to maintain itself. Then the food industry replaced all of it. Refined seed oils, processed vegetable oils, stripped of everything that mattered. Cheaper to produce, longer shelf life, and completely empty of what your gut actually needs. Your doctor didn't warn you. The packaging didn't warn you. And for decades, you cooked with those oils and thought nothing of it. Your digestion didn't collapse because you got older. It collapsed because the fuel changed. And nobody told you. That's what we're fixing today. Certain oils, specific, unprocessed, cold-pressed oils, contain compounds that your intestinal wall uses directly to rebuild that protective mucus layer. Not from the outside, from within. They signal the cells in your gut lining to start producing what they stopped producing. And when that happens, things start to change. Not overnight, but steadily, consistently, in a direction that actually holds. I'm going to walk you through 4 of them. I'm going to go from the most immediate, the one that works fastest when you need results today, to the most important, the one that repairs the root of the problem. Pay attention to the last one. That's the one you build your mornings around. The first one is MCT oil. Medium-chain triglycerides. The name sounds complicated, but what it does is actually very straightforward. Most oils need your full digestive system to break them down. Bile, enzymes, the whole process. MCT oil skips all of that. It absorbs directly through your intestinal wall and reaches your liver in minutes. And when it does, it triggers a release of something called motilin, the hormone that activates the wave-like contractions your colon uses to move things through. After 60, motilin production slows down. Those contractions get weaker. Things creep instead of move. MCT oil essentially flips that switch back on. Researchers measured colon transit time with MCT supplementation and found it improved by around 1/3. People feel it within 4 to 8 hours. This is your emergency oil. The one you reach for when you need today to be different. 1 teaspoon, not a tablespoon, start with a teaspoon. Mixed into a glass of warm water first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. Wait 30 minutes before eating. This is not a daily oil. Using it every day stops working. It's powerful precisely because you use it selectively. The second oil is one that almost nobody talks about. And the reason nobody talks about it is genuinely interesting. Castor oil. This oil fell out of fashion decades ago. Your grandparents knew it. Your parents might have used it. And somewhere along the way, it disappeared from the conversation. It shouldn't have. Castor oil contains something called ricinoleic acid. When it reaches your small intestine, it binds to specific receptors that directly stimulate intestinal movement. It is the only oil that works this way. It is also the only oil that has been formally studied as a direct alternative to stimulant laxatives. This one is powerful, and I want you to use it right. 1/2 teaspoon. That's it. Never more. And never more than twice a week. Used too often, it creates the same dependency problem as pharmaceutical laxatives. 1/2 teaspoon occasionally when you need real help. It works within 2 to 6 hours. The third oil is for those mornings when everything feels stuck before the day even begins. When the heaviness is there from the moment you open your eyes and you know it's going to follow you around. This one doesn't work fast. But what it does, nothing else on this list does as well. Flaxseed oil is the richest plant-based source of alpha-linolenic acid available. 1 tablespoon delivers more of this specific omega-3 than almost anything else you can eat. And this is the compound your intestinal wall uses most directly to rebuild its protective lining. Remember the pan analogy. This is the coating. This is what fills in what's worn away. Not temporarily. Structurally. A study tracked adults for 3 weeks on daily flaxseed oil. The reduction in straining was the most significant recorded for any dietary oil in that study. Not just easier bowel movements, less effort, less discomfort, less of that exhausting physical struggle that leaves you feeling worse after than before. 1 tablespoon, cold, every morning. Never heated. Heat destroys everything that makes it work. Keep it refrigerated at all times and use it within 3 to 4 weeks of opening. If it smells sharp or bitter, throw it out. Rancid flaxseed oil actively irritates your gut lining instead of helping it. Fresh only. Now I need you to stay with me for this next one, because everything I've shown you so far helps things move. The MCT triggers contractions. The castor oil stimulates directly. The flaxseed rebuilds the lining. They all help. They all work. But this last one does something none of them do. It rebuilds the system that produces the movement itself. And almost nobody is using it this way. That is a different category of result entirely. And once you understand how it works, you're going to wonder why this was never the first thing anyone told you. Extra virgin olive oil. I know. You've heard of it. You probably cook with it. But what you're about to hear is almost certainly not how you've been using it. And the difference between how most people use olive oil and how it actually works for your gut is the difference between managing a problem and ending it. Extra virgin olive oil has the highest concentration of oleic acid of any edible oil. And oleic acid does something very direct inside your intestinal wall. It stimulates what are called goblet cells. Those are the cells whose entire job is to produce and secrete the protective mucus your colon needs to function. After 60, those cells slow down. They produce less. The lining thins. Everything that follows, the dryness, the dragging, the bloating, the straining, every bit of it flows from that one failure. Oleic acid tells those cells to work again. Not by adding lubrication from the outside. By restoring your body's ability to produce it from within. Researchers followed adults over 60 who took extra virgin olive oil daily for 4 weeks. By the end of that month, 3 out of 4 of them were having complete, comfortable bowel movements consistently. 3 out of 4. And here is what separates this from everything else on this list. The effect continued after they stopped supplementing. Because they hadn't been stimulating a broken system. They had been repairing a working one. But olive oil alone is not the full picture. You add 2 things. Fresh lemon juice. Half a lemon. Lemon juice stimulates your gallbladder to release bile. Your body's own internal lubricant that most people over 60 aren't producing insufficient amounts. You're combining an oil that restores your internal production with a trigger that activates your existing system simultaneously. Fresh ginger. A 1/4 teaspoon grated. Not powder, fresh. Ginger contains compounds called ginger rolls that directly activate peristalsis, the wave-like muscle contractions your colon uses to push things through. You are restoring production, activating lubrication, and triggering movement. 3 mechanisms. 1 small glass. Every morning, 1 tablespoon of cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil. Dark glass bottle, labeled cold-pressed, not refined, not light, not pure olive oil. Those words mean processed and stripped of everything useful. The juice of half a fresh lemon. A 1/4 teaspoon of freshly grated ginger. Mix it in a small glass. Drink it on a completely empty stomach. Nothing for at least 8 hours before. Wait 30 minutes before eating anything. Before I show you exactly how to combine all 4 of these into something you can actually do every morning without thinking about it. A few important things I want you to hear directly. If you take any blood-thinning medication, talk to your doctor before adding olive oil daily. It has mild blood-thinning properties that can interact. If you have IBS or Crohn's disease, skip the castor oil entirely. It is too stimulating for an already inflamed gut. And in the first 2 or 3 days of the olive oil routine, some people feel mild nausea. Don't stop. That is your gallbladder flushing bile it hasn't properly been asked to produce in a long time. It fades within a few days. Stay with it. For everyone else, everything I've described is available at any grocery store. Most of it is already in your kitchen. Now let me make this as simple as possible, because information without a plan is just noise. Every single morning, on an empty stomach, you take your olive oil with lemon and ginger. That is your foundation. That is the one you never skip. That is what rebuilds the system day by day. 2 or 3 mornings a week, you swap the olive oil for flaxseed oil instead. Same timing, same empty stomach. That's your deep structural work. The material that rebuilds the lining from within. When you wake up and you know it's one of those days, heavy, pressured, stuck, that's when you use the MCT oil instead. 1 teaspoon in warm water. That's your fast response. And castor oil, you keep it in the cabinet. You use it when you need it. Not often. Half a teaspoon. Twice a week maximum. 4 oils. Clear rolls. Nothing complicated. 2 minutes every morning. Here's what the timeline actually looks like. Honestly. Days 3 to 5, the bloating starts to ease. You'll notice you feel lighter earlier in the day. Around the end of week 2, mornings start to feel different. Less dread. Less is calculating. Week 4. Most people tell me the same thing. They realized at some point during the day that they hadn't thought about their digestion at all. And that absence, that silence, is what tells you something has actually changed. Not managed. Changed. For decades, you've been told that digestive decline is just part of getting older. That you just have to manage it. That the best you can do is more fiber and more water and accept the rest. That was never true. Your gut wants to work. Your intestinal lining wants to produce what it was designed to produce. It just needs the right materials to do it. Materials it had access to for generations. Until quietly, without anyone asking your permission, those materials were taken off your plate and replaced with something cheaper. You are not broken. You were just never given the right tools. 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil with lemon and ginger tomorrow morning. Empty stomach. That is where this starts. I want to ask you one thing before you go. What did your doctor tell you the last time you brought this up? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And what I keep seeing in those answers is going to be exactly what the next video is about. And if you have someone in your life who's been quietly living with this, a spouse, a close friend, a sibling who mentions it but never really talks about it, send them this. Sometimes it's easier to share a video than to start that conversation yourself. If this explained something in a way that finally made sense, that's what this channel is here for. Every video takes something you've been managing for years and shows you what's actually underneath it. Subscribe. The next one matters just as much as this one.